When Paul Teutul Jr. reflects on his past, the image of a young man tirelessly working in a workshop surrounded by the smell of hot metal and the clatter of machinery isn't just nostalgia, it's a foundation that would eventually be tested, cracked, and reshaped by the very family that helped build his empire. Paul Jr.'s life was never typical of a teenager in the 80s. While most kids were lost in the world of cartoons or the latest video game craze, Paul was already elbows deep in the heat and grind of Orange County Iron Works. By the age of 12, while his peers were soaking up the sun at the beach, Paul was sweeping metal shavings off the floor, assisting grown men with welding and grinding. His love for motorcycles wasn't just about the thrill of the ride, it was rooted in a deeper, almost obsessive need to create. It wasn't unusual for him to sift through the scrap metal from his father's job site, collecting discarded pieces to fashion into miniature sculptures, a practice that marked the beginning of his remarkable journey as a builder. As the years went by, Paul wasn't just a kid on the shop floor. He was a young prodigy. At 14, he was welding with the kind of precision that earned the respect of men twice his age. He wasn't just learning a trade, he was becoming a master of it, developing an innate ability to think like a builder, a skill few ever truly master. But the road to becoming the mind behind America's most famous motorcycles wasn't paved with applause and admiration. His father, Paul Sr., was a man of intense convictions, and he had one rule that defined his approach to both business and family: perfection. When it came to Paul Jr., perfection was non-negotiable. If Jr. made a mistake, even a small one, it wasn't just a lesson learned in private. He was publicly chastised, a harsh tactic designed to toughen him up. While many saw this as unfair, Paul Sr. saw it as a necessary trial by fire. Yet, as they worked side by side in the noisy, bustling shop, their differences became impossible to ignore. Paul Sr. was old school, a man who believed in brute strength and rugged, tried-and-true methods. His son, on the other hand, had an artistic vision, a desire for clean lines and meticulous attention to detail that often clashed with his father's philosophy. One summer, Paul Jr. tried to redesign a railing, not only making it stronger, but aesthetically superior. His father dismissed the idea outright, but a few days later, Paul Sr. quietly approved it and used the design in a new project. That silent moment, when father and son reached an unspoken understanding, said it all. There was respect beneath the tension, but it was always overshadowed by a tug-of-war between two vastly different philosophies. As Paul Jr. navigated the turbulent waters of his teenage years, the pressures from home intensified. Rather than following the conventional path, he enrolled in a vocational program, dedicating half of his school day to mastering the intricacies of welding, blueprints, and the delicate art of understanding stress points in steel. His instructors quickly recognized something rare in him, an almost supernatural ability to sense the way metal wanted to move, a skill that went far beyond the textbook. Every weld, every cut, every turn of the torch was more than practice. It was passion, and Jr. spent countless hours refining his craft until it became second nature. But as the years passed, the once harmonious bond between father and son began to fracture. The success of their company, Orange County Choppers, brought fame and fortune, but it also amplified the deep-seated rifts between them. Paul Jr.'s artistic vision often collided with his father's insistence on traditional methods. Their strained relationship was a ticking time bomb waiting to explode, and when the family's internal conflict finally boiled over, it resulted in the most painful moment of Paul Jr.'s career. His father demanded $1.5 million from his own son, and his brother was forced to choose sides in the war that followed. The culmination of years of tension finally led to an unavoidable split. Paul Sr. fired his son. At the time, it felt like the end of the world to Paul Jr. But with time, he realized that moment, as devastating as it was might have been the best thing that ever happened to him. Years later, now a father himself, Paul Jr. would come to understand the true cost of the infamous family feud. The birth of his own son brought with it a clarity that only parenthood could provide. In the end, Paul Jr. found peace with the past, recognizing that forgiveness was the only way forward. But despite the passage of time, the scars from the family war run deep. And as Paul Jr. continues to build on his legacy, the specter of his father, along with the painful truth behind the cameras, remains. For 15 years, he hasn't shared a holiday meal with Paul Sr. The world knows him as the man who built the motorcycles that put Orange County choppers on the map. But behind the scenes, there's so much more to the story. A story of family, betrayal, and a relentless pursuit of perfection. And while the public may only see the gleaming chrome and polished steel of the bikes, Paul Jr.'s journey is, at its heart, a testament to the true cost of chasing a dream. Paul Teutul Jr. never believed in the conventional route to success. He wasn't the type to follow a set of rules or check off boxes on a college application. Instead, he understood the most vital lesson of all: master your craft, and the rest will follow. So, when he returned to his father's shop after graduation, it wasn't as the same kid who had once swept floors and ran errands. No, by this time, Paul Jr. had transformed into a skilled fabricator who spoke the language of the pros and backed it up with undeniable results. At just 19, Paul Jr. found himself in charge of the railing division at Orange County Iron Works. And this wasn't just any department, it was the backbone of the company, generating nearly half of their income. While many would assume that his rise to such a position was purely due to family favoritism, the reality was much different. Jr. had earned it. He expanded the shop's design options, introducing a fresh, modern edge that quickly attracted attention. Customers didn't just want any railing, they wanted something crafted by Paul Teutul Jr. His designs became so in demand that clients were willing to pay a premium and wait longer for the privilege of owning one. But the role was not without its challenges. Paul Jr. wasn't just managing a crew of older workers, many of them veterans of the workforce, some skeptical of the young boss. It wasn't easy to win their respect. But over time, even the toughest of the crew had no choice but to admit that Jr. knew exactly what he was doing. He had taken the metal shop from the ordinary to the extraordinary. That kind of respect, from men who had spent years working in the business, wasn't handed out easily. Still, despite the success in the railing division, Paul Jr. couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. He felt stifled. After years of building stationary metal structures, he craved something more, a creation that could move, something alive. And that spark of inspiration came to him in the form of an old notebook. After long days at the shop, Paul Jr. began secretly sketching designs for motorcycles. Those sketches would eventually ignite a fire that would change his life forever. Coincidentally, Paul Sr. also reignited his interest in motorcycles around the same time. It started as a casual conversation. Sr. asked Jr. to help him build a bike. But when Paul Sr. saw the designs his son had been working on, something shifted. The designs weren't just technical, they were artistic, imaginative, and daring. The craftsmanship was like nothing he had seen before. In that moment, Paul Sr. turned to his son and said, "Let's build bikes for real." But this wasn't just about building motorcycles. It was about repairing something much deeper, their fractured relationship. With just $175,000 scraped together from the family business, Paul Sr. and Paul Jr. officially launched Orange County Choppers. But the partnership wasn't exactly equal. Sr. kept 80% of the company, while Jr. was left with just 20%. At that moment, it didn't matter. They had nothing but a dream, a handful of tools, and a cold basement that doubled as their workshop. But despite the limited resources, they worked tirelessly. And within months, the bikes they built began to turn heads. Their first creation, True Blue, was a labor of love. It took 4 long months of late nights welding and meticulous work. The bike was a masterpiece, a sleek blue frame adorned with white flames. It looked like something from a high-end builder, not a frozen garage in upstate New York. When they debuted True Blue at Daytona Bike Week in 1999, the response was nothing short of awe. They weren't nobodies anymore. They had arrived. But success didn't come easily. In the early 2000s, they were still working out of a tiny, freezing workshop, surrounded by broken tools and dwindling funds. Supplies were scarce, and the money ran out fast. Paul Jr. often worked 18-hour days, sleeping on a couch in the shop just to stay on schedule. The stress was relentless, and the tension between father and son only intensified. Yelling matches weren't uncommon, not for the cameras, but for survival. Every bike they sold barely covered the costs of production, but despite the constant setbacks, they kept pushing forward. Then, in 2002, a phone call changed everything. A TV producer named Craig Pelagian had seen a feature on Orange County choppers and was intrigued. He was scouting for a new reality show centered around restoring junkyard bikes. When he called the shop, Paul Sr. picked up the phone. His response was immediate and blunt. "What the hell do you want?" Pelagian pitched his idea, but Sr. wasn't interested. "We build them from scratch," he said, slamming the door on the idea of restoring bikes that others had already started. That moment would mark the beginning of an entirely new chapter in their story, one that would catapult them into the public eye and make Orange County choppers a household name. It wasn't just about building bikes anymore. It was about proving that the Teutul family had something more to offer the world. And in many ways, it was a final attempt to rebuild the relationship between father and son, one motorcycle at a time. The deal for the TV show almost fell apart. But weeks later, the producer came back with a new, more daring proposal: capture the raw, unfiltered process, including the arguments and family tensions. Paul Jr. hated the idea. He feared the cameras would tear everything apart. In fact, he was so against it that he wrote his dad a 5-page letter warning, "They'll make us look like fools." The terms were insulting: a measly $5,000 per episode, endless retakes, and lighting so hot it would interfere with their work. At one point, the producers even floated the idea of calling the show Family Friction, which nearly drove Paul Jr. to walk away from the deal. But they were desperate. The money was too tempting, so they signed on the dotted line. When American Chopper premiered on March 31st, 2003, no one could have predicted the phenomenon that would follow. In just 3 episodes, the show exploded. Over 3 million people tuned in each week, eager to watch the drama unfold in the shop. Suddenly, they weren't just bike builders. They were stars. Their small, cramped shop became a tourist attraction. Merchandise flew off the shelves. Discovery Channel raked in $13 million in sales from that first season alone. The Teutuls were thrust into the limelight, and their lives would never be the same. At first, it was Paul Sr.'s fiery temper that grabbed attention. His outbursts were raw, unfiltered, and unpredictable. But it was Paul Jr. who kept viewers hooked. While the drama was fascinating, it was his skill in the shop that truly captivated audiences. Silent, focused, and precise, Jr.'s designs were nothing short of magic. One iconic scene of him building a gas tank with no background music or talking became one of the most requested clips in the show's history. It wasn't just a welding lesson, it was a masterclass in craftsmanship, and the impact was profound. Welding schools across the nation saw a sharp rise in enrollments, dubbing it the Pauly effect. But it was the Black Widow bike that truly changed the game. More than just a motorcycle, it was a statement. A spiderweb gas tank, custom wheels, and 167 hours of painstaking craftsmanship went into creating the masterpiece. When the bike was unveiled in New York, the crowd's reaction was electric. 15,000 people packed the streets to see it, with security struggling to keep the masses in check. Soon, the Teutuls were no longer just building bikes. they had created a brand. Merchandise, model kits, shirts, and even video games flew off the shelves. In just 6 months, over 280,000 model kits were sold. Orange County Choppers was no longer just a workshop. It had become a global phenomenon. But the bike that really solidified Paul Jr.'s legacy was the Fire Bike, a tribute to the firefighters who perished during the 9/11 attacks. It wasn't just another chopper. It was a powerful, emotional memorial. Every detail of the bike had to carry meaning. One of the most moving touches was a real piece of steel from the wreckage of the World Trade Center. Paul Jr. didn't trust anyone else to weld it onto the bike. He did it himself, the jagged piece of metal becoming the final emotional touch to the creation. The frame was also redesigned to carry 343 hand-painted emblems, each one honoring a fallen firefighter. The weight, both literal and symbolic, demanded serious engineering, but Paul Jr. delivered. When the bike was involved in an accident the following year, the New York Fire Department didn't treat it like a typical crash. They responded with reverence, recovering the bike with the care one would give a fallen comrade. That's how deeply it resonated with them. To this day, the fire bike remains in the O.C. Choppers Museum, where it has been displayed at over 248 events. People still visit, moved by its meaning, often leaving personal notes and tributes beside it. Years later, Paul Jr. would once again channel the pain and power of 9/11 into another tribute bike, ensuring that the memory of those lost would never fade. The legacy of his craftsmanship, his father's influence, and the enduring bond they shared, even through their struggles, was cemented in every piece he built. On January 20th, 2011, Paul Jr. unveiled another tribute bike that would leave an indelible mark on the hearts of all who witnessed it. The event was more than just another motorcycle reveal. It was a moment of collective healing. It wasn't just bikers in attendance. Even New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg and the president of the 9/11 Memorial were there, a testament to how far-reaching Paul Jr.'s work had become. He had been asked by Daniel R. Tishman, a board member of the memorial, to build something unforgettable. Paul delivered not one, but 2 bikes. One was to remain as a permanent tribute, while the other would be raffled off to raise funds for the 9/11 Museum. The emotional weight of the moment was palpable. When the cover came off the bike, it moved people to tears. Grown men, families, tourists, and everyone in between were affected by the power of the tribute. The design itself spoke volumes without saying a single word. Even the Huffington Post picked up the story, spreading the message far beyond those who could attend the event in person. But it wasn't just the emotional impact that set this bike apart. It was Paul Jr.'s technical genius. He wasn't just creating visually stunning machines, he was revolutionizing the way motorcycles were built. In 2012, he introduced a game-changing technique that would have far-reaching consequences in the motorcycle industry. By utilizing T-spling, a tool that allowed for smoother, more precise curved shapes, what once took over 40 hours of painstaking labor could now be completed in just 15. That same year, Paul Jr. worked on an electric bike with Autodesk, and this new method was critical to the bike's design. As other shops began to adopt the technique, many failed to realize where it originated, and even fewer gave credit to its innovator. But Paul Jr. wasn't content to stop there. In 2015, he took his innovation to the next level by creating a system that made motorcycle frames lighter while maintaining their strength. This breakthrough would forever change how custom motorcycles were built, opening up new possibilities for the industry. Not stopping at just design, Paul Jr. taught himself how to write G-code, the programming language for CNC machines. Once merely the creative force behind the builds, he had now become the architect of both the design and the machines that brought those designs to life. The tension between Paul Sr. and Paul Jr. escalated sharply from 2007 to 2008, following Jr.'s rising prominence in design despite holding only a 20% stake in the family business. Resentment brewed as Paul Sr. struggled to accept his son's creative success, resulting in daily confrontations. The breaking point came in September 2008 during a public argument, leading Jr. to express a desire to break free from his father's toxic control. This explosive moment culminated in Jr.'s dramatic exit from Orange County Choppers. After the fallout, the shop split into factions. Some supported Jr., while others feared Sr. The uncertainty cast doubt among customers regarding the bike's quality without Jr.'s innovation. TLC, behind American Chopper, was also alarmed when Jr. breached his contract by walking off the show, leading to a temporary return as a contractor before exiting completely by April 2009. Sr., eager to retain control, attempted to buy Jr.'s 20% stake in Orange County Choppers when Jr. refused. This led to a lawsuit from Sr., asserting the right to buy Jr.'s shares for $500,000 plus an additional $1 million in damages. The dispute, rooted in a vague contract clause regarding fair market value, escalated into a court battle in 2010, where an initial ruling favored Sr. However, Jr. appealed, and in December, the appellate court overturned the ruling, deeming the clause unenforceable. Consequently, Jr. retained his stake in the company, marking a significant personal victory against his father and affirming his tenacity. Jr. reflected on his relationship with his father, acknowledging they weren't fighting, but not truly spending time together either. Despite the legal battles being resolved, he felt the emotional aftermath left him unsure about his next steps. Although bound by a non-compete clause preventing him from building bikes until 2010, Jr. shifted his focus to product design, managing challenging projects like a dog park and a camping grill redesign. It was a tough period, yet he and his wife, Rachel, transformed a room into an office, hired an assistant, and launched Paul Jr. Designs across from Orange County Choppers. When the non-compete ended in April 2010, Jr.'s new venture sparked a mass defection from his father's company, with key team members, including his brother Mikey, leaving to join him. This family rivalry caught the attention of Discovery Channel, leading to the reality show Sr. vs. Jr., airing in August 2010. While it became a ratings hit, it showcased the tumultuous state of their father-son relationship, overshadowing the bikes they once built together. Amid a challenging period, an unexpected bond emerged when Paul Jr. met Rachel Beast while filming. Rachel, embodying the McCuff girl in a yellow jumpsuit, sparked a connection that transcended their professional relationship. As a successful boutique owner, she became Paul Jr.'s source of stability and deepened his faith, influencing a transformative shift in his life. Their wedding in August 2010 was meant to symbolize a fresh start. However, it was marred by the absence of Paul Sr., who chose not to attend due to ongoing lawsuits and unresolved tensions, leaving the celebration feeling incomplete. The empty chair highlighted the deep rift between father and son. Over time, the wounds didn't heal easily, but in 2015, their fortunes changed. After struggles with conception, Paul Jr. and Rachel joyfully learned they were expecting a child. This news marked a new chapter in Paul Jr.'s life, allowing him to embrace fatherhood and redefine his understanding of family, providing a hopeful future that united him with his own growing family. During a brief visit to Nashville, Paul Jr. experienced a profound shift in perspective when he held his newborn son, Hudson. This moment made him deeply reflect on his own fatherhood and brought clarity to his relationship with Paul Sr. He began to recognize the pain his father must have felt during their years of silence and conflict, realizing what had been lost along the way. This transformation was not solely about reconciling with his past. It also involved personal growth, particularly in his faith. Paul Jr. admitted his lifestyle choices, including his relationship with Rachel, were not ones he was proud of. After a spiritual retreat, he and Rachel decided to abstain from intimacy until marriage, marking a meaningful commitment in their relationship. Eventually, he proposed to her, and their faith-driven choice became the cornerstone of their marriage. Publicly, Paul Jr. began sharing his spiritual journey to assist others with similar struggles, using his experiences to heal old wounds, both for himself and Hudson. Their family conflict, largely viewed on reality TV, emphasized the deeply personal nature of their rivalry. The 2011 televised build-off showcased their emotional divide, with Paul Jr.'s bike designs narrating his personal journey and rejecting past definitions. Between 2010 and 2016, father and son faced off in various competitions, with Paul Jr. emerging victorious in 5 out of 7 encounters. After leaving Orange County Choppers in 2009, he went beyond merely starting a new company. He built a thriving empire. His brief non-compete clause instead ignited his creativity, as he formed partnerships like the one with Coleman to design a grill. Contrary to expectations of his decline, Paul Jr. flourished. By 2012, his brand surpassed his father's, with a successful clothing line and notable collaborations with companies like Blizzard and Paramount. The rift between him and his father lingered, yet over time, they began to inch toward potential reconciliation as they coped with shared history and legacy. In December 2011, the passing of Paul Jr.'s grandmother marked a breaking point, as he reached out to Sr. for the first time in nearly 2 years. Their conversation, though brief, revealed deep-seated emotions, hinting at a shift. The 2018 reunion, however, was driven by business rather than healing. The Discovery Channel sought to exploit the father-son dynamic, framing the encounter around repairing a bike rather than their fractured relationship. Despite Sr.'s efforts to present a facade of maturity, tension was evident, setting the stage for a complex relationship moving forward. Despite the project meant to bridge the gap, animosity remained palpable between Sr. and Jr. Sr. continued to dismiss Jr.'s ideas, creating tension among crew members. The rare moments of positivity for Jr. came when they worked together quietly, reminiscent of their past, but these were infrequent. Upon completing a bike, Sr. bluntly stated the experience hadn't improved their relationship, disappointing fans who had hoped for reconciliation. By 2025, Paul Sr. and Paul Jr. were still distant, having not shared a holiday for over 15 years, even after Jr.'s son was born. Their businesses were completely separate, with Sr. focusing on Orange County Choppers while Jr. expanded Paul Jr. Designs into a $14 million venture. Neither wished to collaborate again, acknowledging their previous partnership had fractured their relationship. However, Jr. was prepared to confront their struggles. In February 2025, he announced the release of his memoir, Given the Opportunity, scheduled for October. Unlike typical polished narratives, this book promised raw honesty, detailing omitted incidents from American Chopper, including a near-physical altercation in 2008 and his father's battles with alcoholism. Jr. aimed to share his story not just for himself, but to resonate with others facing similar familial challenges, moving beyond bikes and ratings towards personal healing and authenticity.